And then I realized, Dan, you don't have to have a hot take about everything.
Yes, you do.
Chase Claypool, to me, I'm not going to get upset about it because I think it's irrelevant.
This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel and the Buffalo Plus Podcast. Mike Catalano, along with Dan Fates, Jenna Cottrell, with a
Vacation.
Oh, yeah, that
she
was the word I was looking for.
She was on vacation.
I was going to get Princess in there somehow, but yeah, she deserves it. Yeah, so she's good. She's on her vacation. Dan and I are here. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. We appreciate it. As you know, we're trying to make it, unless there's events going on, we'll have extra videos. We're trying to make it every Tuesday morning where we have our video podcast, we have our audio podcast, wherever you get a chance to see them. Now, Dan and I got some stuff to talk about with you about the Bills. We have our special guest, Mike Giardi.
Recurring
I wouldn't even
legend.
say friend of the pod. He's way past friend of the pod. He's family.
Yes.
Here.
Yes.
He is
family
for
of
Buffalo
the pod.
Plus. Family of the pod. Talks Bills. The man knows the Bills still.
Yep.
Like, he was locked in when he was here. He's been covering the Patriots for a long time, covers them for the Boston Journal up there. So he's got that. And we talked to him about the roast.
Yeah. Also, there will be, make sure you're watching.
Yes.
If you're listening, make sure you're watching the YouTube link. Top 10 Buffalo Plus moments.
It's a good moment. It's funny.
It should make the open. If we ever make a new open, that one should be in it.
Yeah. And, you know, Dan loves these kind of moments because, you know, it's not him.
It's true. He didn't talk about saying anybody had an oil change.
No, but it's good. You're going to want to hear it, and we talk about all that. But let's talk about the Bills right now and where they are. The rookie mini camp on Friday. We'll be up there Friday in Orchard Park. We get a chance to see these guys on the field. I wanted to ask you about Keon Coleman. I have not, since the draft, it's like he's been radio silent. We haven't seen him anywhere during this period of time. Really nothing out of the kid.
He's become a darling. And honestly, it is refreshing. And in today's day and age, there are a lot of times maybe, especially for people that didn't watch Florida State or even watch college football, to really kind of get to see his personality come out. I compared it to Trey White when he was in goalie pads running around the Bills locker room, things like that. It is refreshing. It is fun. Just hope it all works out.
Yeah.
That's
Listen,
all.
The one good thing is Keon is not, like we were talking about the draft pick for the Patriots, Baker.
Javon Baker.
And Javon likes Javon. Javon's very big on Javon. Now, I'm not saying Keon doesn't have confidence, but most of the stuff with Keon is funny.
It's him.
About him and the way he is. I will say, after rookie minicamp, I think this is not an old man take.
It is.
No, it's because I think it's like you bring a lot of attention to yourself. And again, it's been all fun and positive. It's just a lot for the pick. That part's going to go. I'm not saying he's not working, but now, I think even vets will be like, hey, you know, that's great, man. You've done 38 podcasts.
But it's also the Bills themselves, the Tiger Wish I Could.
It's very good.
Which was just like.
And that's at the combine.
That's a job interview.
Yes.
Like that.
And that's got to be intimidating. Picture you walk in, you know, Bean's there, McDermott's there, the staff's there, and you walk in, you're this kid, you know, you're like, I'm here. Now, they've done other ones and all. Listen, I love the stuff. I'm just saying there'll be the point where it's like, okay, now let's get to work. And not that he's not going to work.
That was my only thing, was that you hope things go
I hope it goes great for him.
Which we all do, you included, hope this goes well, because there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, we'll have, the camp's going to be at Fisher. Keon's going to be very popular at camp.
He is very likable, very easy to root for.
He's young.
He's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Seems great.
So be prepared for that too. He's young. Listen, a lot of these colleges, they have great offenses. We see the talent. Their playbook might as well be a pamphlet compared to what he's going to see. That's the adjustment.
We talked about it, and I showed you some of them. He didn't really run routes. He really kind of played Florida State for pretty much went, hey, run down the field. We're going to throw you the ball. And you're bigger and more athletic than the other 19 and 20-year-olds you're going up against, and it worked. So I think that's part of where you can see that rawness.
Yeah.
And my college roommate texted me and he goes, Dan, you wanted somebody that was elite at something. You got your guy.
Yes.
And he goes, because he thinks he played high school football, coached, football, says like what Keon has is elite. And that's all I was asking for was I didn't want just to have a guy that was, versatile across the board and, all these things. So I think he does have that upside. I think Keon has a very high upside, which has me excited because I think his ball skills are impressive. I think his hands, I think the footwork from the basketball side, all of those things, again, where I was worried about the separation and things like that, he's raw. And you always talk about it. Having a guy with no bad traits is better than having somebody, it's better to have somebody with no habits than bad habits. And I don't think I think he's raw enough to where you can mold him.
Which also means he's got a lot to learn.
I got there.
Yes, he did. I really like Matt Harmon. Really goes through in detail.
Perception.
And I listened to his pod and did not love the pick for the Bills.
Nope.
Didn't love the player. Doesn't like him on the outside. Now listen, he does a lot of hard work, studies a lot of tape. The only thing I will say is a lot of it is based on other players with that measurables, other players this way. Look, a lot of what it comes down to, it's like Justin Jefferson came into the league with people saying, this dude is a slot receiver.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying to you is the sport he played at Florida State somewhat resembles the sport he's going to play in the NFL. I mean, it is just different. That doesn't guarantee that he can play the X, be on the outside and all. Brandon Beane's not dumb.
Yeah.
Like, they're not bringing this kid in and going, it's not like they drafted him in the 6th round and go, we think we can play him outside. Like, they believe this. I do think, first and foremost, they drafted a guy they think can be a really good football player.
Yes.
But we all need a little bit of patience with him. And Josh will know that too.
Yeah.
So, but they have Chase Claypool now, so they should be fine.
We're going to do Claypool now? I originally tweeted okay about the Claypool signing, and then I tweeted
now you're all in?
No. So then I tweeted the Michael Scott gif of like, nope, don't like it. And then I realized, Dan, you don't have to have a hot take about everything.
Yes, you do.
Chase Claypool, to me, I'm not going to get upset about it because I think it's irrelevant. If they would have signed some other wide receiver, a depth guy, as of right now, he's a camp body. That would I care? Would I get upset? And I wouldn't.
Right. You sign him in May as the 85th player on the roster.
This is a 90-man roster right now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think right now, as we stand on May 6th, Chase Claypool is anywhere close to cracking a 53-man roster for this Bills team.
Right.
I don't know what's going to shake out, but I'm not going to sit here and get upset that they signed Chase Claypool. And I could.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's a good football player. I don't think he's necessarily the right fit in the culture. It's what a lot of the comments we got. But I don't think it's going to matter because I don't think he's going to be around on August 20th.
And sometimes with those guys where that's who they are, like, and I'm not making the comparison. I'm just throwing out a name of a guy that everybody knew, Antonio Brown type. When he comes in your place, he ain't changing. This is who he is. You know this is who you're bringing in. The only thing I'll say about Claypool is, and I don't know the guy, and I hope he gets his act together, and I hope it's for the Bills. But you're going to run out of chances. Like, you're now getting signed. You've been traded. You've been moved, now you're getting picked up as a street free agent in May. Yeah. So meaning like, this stuff's got to work at some point. You got to show something different. And the difference with Claypool, I will say this. There have been moments in the NFL he's shown ability and made some plays. More so when he was younger. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the difference between him and Justin Shorter. I have to get him in there, put him in. He's in the pod. Only because we haven't gotten a chance to see. Justin Shorter could end up being the surprise at camp and being great. Chase Claypool has played in the league, made plays, scored touchdowns. So, and he's still relatively young as a player, and it's of no risk. But
I want to give Matt Perino a shout out. Syracuse.com does a lot of great work covering the Bills. He had on a good friend of mine, Carl Jones, and they were talking about this signing.
Yeah.
And what I give Perino credit for was he did mention that the Bills back in 2020 did do a 30 visit with Chase Claypool. And so that's interesting when you think about some of those. Why are you bringing the guy in for a visit? Maybe you don't sign him then.
Yeah.
But you get the understanding, maybe at least have a little bit more knowledge of it, because then if that guy becomes available via a trade, I mean, look, Chicago gave up a second round pick for him.
Right. That's what I'm saying is he second round pick.
So the Bills don't have to give up.
Yeah.
Bills don't have to give up anything. This is probably a veteran minimum 1 year flyer.
Oh yeah. Prove it. So nothing guaranteed.
So if they said, and they went in that 30 visit, him coming out of college not that long ago, out of Notre Dame going, hey man, like, if you're there for us in this round, we'd like to have you. And then all of a sudden when he becomes available, you're thinking, hey, what would we have to give up? You don't got to give up anything now.
Yeah.
My bigger thing about this is, because people have said it, this happened when we were golfing, and there have been reasonable people like, he's just taking a flyer. Yeah, that's what Bean's doing. He's taking some flyers. My frustration, if I were to have a hot take about all of this, is that you have put yourself into this situation where now you need to hit on a flyer. Like, that's what's tough about it. You've put yourself in a situation where you need Shorter or one of these guys. If the wide receiver room stays as it is right now, you need one of these guys to possibly play big minutes and big snaps.
The guy's got to want to play for you because he had options, I'm sure. OBJ to Miami. Now, look, I just throw it out there. I'd like OBJ in Buffalo. You were saying whether you thought it would be good or not. It's still Odell Beckham Jr. And now Miami has him with those other two guys.
That sucks.
That doesn't mean he wanted to come to Buffalo or the Bills had the money or any of those things. But this is different. You know, that's a team that already has the 1 and the 2.
Yeah.
And now you're bringing that guy in to play that role for them.
You always talk about this, and I think it's very I feel like people have fought back a little bit where I've said they've been a bottom 5 wide receiver room and things like that. Yeah. Okay. But you always talk about if another team were to sign that player, how would you feel?
Especially your rival. So that's why I say, like, when Miami got Claypool, I should look back at fans and be like, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. So now to sit here, and again, I get it. And somebody did make a comment in and was like, can we stop saying that every player we sign and every player we draft is going to be a stud? It's like, that's what part of being a fan is. You're hoping to find lightning in the bottle. Like, I understand that point.
Right.
It's just the fact of you're on your third team in 3 years. And like, that was what my big fear was with Trent Sherfield. People are like, hey, you know what? Trent Sherfield could be this, in this right system. I think Claypool is what he is. The interception, Carl Jones talked about it. The interception of Taylor Rapp had to seal the game in Miami was a pathetic attempt of running a route by Chase Claypool. Soft, curled, wasn't hard or anything like that. And you let Taylor Rapp come in, intercept it, end the game. It's like, and my thing is, Pittsburgh has the culture. Not fit in Pittsburgh and not get it right, it's like, if there's a culture that it works with, it's in Pittsburgh. You then go to Chicago, who had, at the time, nobody on their team, and you still couldn't get on the field. Yeah. That's a concern. And then to go to Miami, where it seems like they go 8-9 guys deep to score touchdowns, and you still don't make an impact.
So 3 totally different ways. Like, Pittsburgh was good, a solid coach. Chicago is young, kind of a mess. Miami is loaded with offensive skill guys. It hasn't worked in any of them.
None of them.
So, again, it's Chase Claypool. And I know most people have a logical look at it and be like, if he becomes something.
Correct.
But,
I would put a decent amount of money that he does not make this team.
Yeah, I'd say his first goal is to make the team. He knows that too. Like, he's coming in there to try to earn a spot. Maybe he does. Maybe he shows something he hasn't done, but he has a lot of competition because the Bills have a lot of competition for what I consider that maybe that 5th wide receiver spot is where you're looking. So we'll see what ends up happening.
We were talking about it in the golf course. It'd be great for this pod if Justin Shorter was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you guys, a lot of people reference him. Listen, if they drafted Justin Shorter this year, it would have been that second guy. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing I will say when they were looking at saying taking a flyer on another receiver. He's a young guy. He's got size. There's physical traits that you like. We just didn't get to see him last year. And he was on IR all year. He couldn't practice. But he is another younger, athletic player that you're hoping to put into the mix. And, because he just wasn't there. And by the way, I do believe the Bills all preseason are still going to be looking for a receiver.
Agree.
And teams, players get cut. Treylon Burks may end up being out with the Titans, which is really something. I mean, they trade A.J. Brown. They draft this kid. He does virtually nothing for 2 years. That's the kind of player maybe you take I guess they'll probably try to trade him. I think they're always going to be looking, but it's from 5 up, not from 1 down.
Yeah. And that's my only thing is, again, at first I was outraged. Can't believe Claypool. Like, what are you doing with this? He doesn't seem like a good fit in the culture, things like that. But take a flyer. I'm withholding my hot take. My hot take is I don't have one on Chase. If I did, I'd say it was I don't like the signing, but I don't have one.
I'm looking forward to seeing some of these other guys on the field. I think Bishop's going to play.
I agree.
I think he's going to play at safety. I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field. It doesn't mean starter day one. I just feel like he screams McDermott safety.
Yeah, I agree.
For this team. So, and then we'll see. We'll see what else we see in the rookie camp. Otherwise, right now, I think it's going to be quiet for a while. They'll still be out there looking, I think, because, you never know what pops up and what teams decide to do. So, want to bring in our guest?
I'd love to.
Yeah. Well, you introduce him.
The legend. Former NFL Network.
He loves that place.
Loves the place. Stay tuned for that. Insight on the Bills, on the Patriots, and the roast of Tom Brady. He's got it all. Once again, Mike Giardi.
All right, Mike Giardi with us, a friend of the pod. Like, come on. He's the number one guest, right?
Yeah. Where's the hat? I sent you the hat.
I've worn the hat. I have worn the hat. Absolutely.
Have you?
Yeah, I have. Can I feel like I should get credit. Like, should I be like a producer? Like they have the.
Well,
I kind of want one of those. No show producers.
We have the open. Like, you might have gotten a spot. Like in the news, sometimes you got that back open, like 13 Wham News with this and the other. It's like, I think you'd be in the back open right now.
At this point.
Yeah.
I've lost count of how many appearances.
Yeah. But, all right. So we got you on here. We're going to talk Patriots. But since we're talking about the Bills and this team, Diggs gone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, you could make the case football-wise. Can you make the case football-wise to move on from Diggs now?
Yeah, you can. You know why you can? Because it's not the football stuff. It's the stuff behind the scenes that clearly they grew tired of. And for what, look, there's dribs and drabs of it. There's been pushback from all sides at various points about, is this real? Is it not real? Is the media making too much of it? They looked at him and said, okay, he was a headache before to a certain degree, but we were winning and we seemed to have him in control. And now maybe in the last year and change, that we felt like we lost some of that control. And oh, by the way, the player in particular in the second half of the season, when we changed coordinators and sort of worked our offense a little bit, like we were winning without him. And I think they looked at that and said, okay, we just proved to ourselves our quarterback's good enough to elevate, the 2s and 3s that are on the roster right now. And we'll go out and draft one. Hopefully Keon Coleman becomes the one, but let's just take the hit and let's start fresh.
Yeah, you say the quarterback. So when we were talking to Bean before the draft, I asked him, you say Josh is interested in the draft and looking at the players and all. I said, and he says, he doesn't know everything about all these guys. He's learning along, but he knew a lot about Stephon Diggs. So he told us that they had called Josh and he knew that they were looking into trading Diggs. So I said, what was his reaction? And Bean, basically his answer was, I'll keep that between us.
It was none. Mike got none of your business.
Yeah. And I get why he wouldn't tell us, but you don't just call him up and go, hey, we're going to trade Diggs. Okay. We'll talk to you later. And I don't think, my impression is there wasn't a lot of pushback from Allen. Now that's just my speculation on it, because if there was, do you think the team would have looked at it differently? If Josh pounded the table and said, I need the guy this year, do you think it would have been any different?
Yeah, I think it would have been different. I think he carries that kind of sway.
Yeah.
And look, they can run through all the different well, if we do it this and then we don't do it this. If Josh just says, look, man, I think we can win a Super Bowl next year, and I got to have him because I don't trust this guy or that guy's not good enough to elevate, or, even Steph himself kept pushing the Gabe Davis is a 1A, like, no, I know what he is, and he's not on the roster anymore, but you get my point, sort of like, no, I think if Josh had put his foot down, I think Brandon would have had to swallow hard and say, all right, we'll take it for another year. But if it goes sideways, you got to be the bad cop now.
Yeah. I guess from my perspective too, and I know we've rehashed this enough, but Mike, what were your thoughts on the Bills not getting a wide receiver in the first round, sprinkled in with making a trade with the Chiefs? What was your take on all of that? Because New England was kind of interesting because they could have gone quarterback. They could have gone wide receiver. They ended up going quarterback. We'll talk about that in a second, but your take on what the Bills did on draft day.
My initial response when they traded the pick to KC and they draft Worthy was like, oh, I mean, really? Like, you've been slapped around by this team. You've had these tough losses that are hard to swallow, and now you're making a trade for a guy who, look, I'm not a Worthy guy. Right. The 165-pound thing, I don't care how fast you are. Like, you're going to run a slant and someone's going to catch it clean, and I don't think you're going to get up from that. But whatever, they have a plan. They like the player. They decide to do it. But I'm thinking to myself, like, I can just see it all now. It's January. It's a playoff game. It's close. And he sneaks by one of your corners and it's 80 yards to the house. And everybody's going like, really? Like, that's how it's going to play. But then the more I thought about it, like, once I got past that sort of emotional reaction to it, the more I thought about it, I was like, all right, look, they looked at the board and said, he's not our guy. And if he's not our guy, and we don't, my guess is they didn't have him even in that same tier, that they said, like, he can go play with Pat Mahomes. Like, he'll have his moments, just like McCole Hardman had his moments. But, like, when push comes to shove, he's not a guy that is going to take over a game. He might have his moments, but he won't take over a game. And we can live with that, get a little extra value. And the guy that we still want is going to be there. So let's do that.
Let's move to your team, the Patriots, the team you're covering. How does Josh Allen 2.0 look so far coming into Foxborough?
So we will get our first look at him this weekend. It's actually for the first time, and I can't even remember how long. It's at least a decade, maybe longer, that will open up at least one day of rookie minicamp. Bill did not allow us that. Gerard Mayo and the new regime will allow us that. But look, there are some similarities to be made. I don't think he's as good of an athlete as Josh is. I mean, look, he's got a great arm, but Josh might have the arm, in the league, he and Pat. So, like, I understand the comparisons. I've sort of made it myself. He runs pretty well. Like, I don't know that he's going to be a bowling ball like Josh can be, but, like, there are some similarities. But to me, the thing that I keep telling people here when they ask about it, like, because there were a lot of people that pushed back, didn't want the quarterback, like, trade back, get more assets, pick around players, and then, like, build it up until you're ready for a quarterback. And I said, like, if the guy's good enough, he'll be able to handle whatever you throw at him, and he'll be able to handle when he's not so good and you're not so good. And Josh, I think, was the prime example of that. And I always point to it because I say 52% in his rookie year. Didn't start right away, played the 12 games, 52%. The next year starts all the games, 59%. And then it was year 3 that he takes the leap. And I'm like, that's kind of, if I have a blueprint for Drake May, I mean, obviously you'd love him to come in and be CJ Stroud, but at 21, I'm not expecting that with some of the rawness to his game. Like, to me, that's the sort of plan. Let Jacoby Brissett play for 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it is. But you get him in there at some point during the course of the year and you give him a fair amount of tape and stuff to chew on into the offseason. And then you hope you're making those sorts of progressions. And then by year 3, you're ready to go.
What are the expectations like in Foxborough with, Bill gone and this kind of thing? I think Vegas still only has him at like 5.5, 6.5 wins. I mean, is that the bar, or is this a team that thinks like, hey, we're sneaky good, like, don't sleep on us, we could push for a playoff push here?
I don't know if they think they are a playoff team. I think there's been some sort of signals where they're like, look, this is going to take a little bit because the roster, especially in the offensive side, which I've been talking about for almost 3 years now, was pretty wretched. And so now they're sort of turning that over and they're bringing in these pieces, and we'll see, if they hit in the draft, Polk in the 2nd round, Javon Baker in the 4th round. Baker's already talking like, he thinks he's on Ross St. Brown, where like
that's
everybody, I mean,
that's my guy.
All right. Can I just say this? as well, Catalano and I are both the old guys here, but
Yeah.
but I feel like I can say this, like do something first. Like
Yeah.
I'm on Ra's set a little bit, but then didn't go full on like all these guys are drafted in front of me until he started catching 7, 8, 9 passes a game. Javon, like you might not even start. So let's
But he did get a guy in a wheelchair to stand up.
Yeah.
It did happen.
Yeah,
there it is, Mike. He backed it up.
Well, I mean, so look, the fans are taking their pants off for him. I mean, they're like they couldn't be more excited about it. I'm like, let's just see. I think the other guy's pretty good. I like Polk a lot, so Polk might be the better rookie. But again, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But they look. I mean, I think they look at their defense and say, look, we're going to get Judon back. We're going to get Gonzalez back. Gonzalez played 3 games and a quarter and was great for 3 games and a quarter. But as I remind people, like, okay, one of the questions about him was sort of toughness and physical durability. And here it is in his first year, he blows out the shoulder and you lose him for the rest of the year. So as good as he was, I can't go pencil him in as the number 1 corner just yet. I have to see it for an extended period of time. But they feel like defensively they'll be better, and they were good last year. So that if they get competent quarterback play, which is I think I've been crying for like 2 years, just give me someone who can like just don't turn it over, don't be an idiot, hit the easy stuff. That maybe 7 wins, maybe 8 wins, not out of the realm of possibility. Me personally, I think that kind of stinks because that puts you in no man's land, right? If you go 8 and 9, it's great for the first year of the regime. Like, hey, we build up hope, we double Belichick's win total from a year ago, but then you're picking 14th. You start to fall on that where you're not necessarily in the range for the blue chippers.
Yeah, I guess the plus would be if you think you got the guy at quarterback, it lessens that a little bit, to seeing how he plays. Because even Josh, after that rookie year, I mean, he was pretty good. He was all over the map a little bit. And not that you were going to totally judge him on that year, because that was not a very good team around him. The physical skills just popped, like in the game against Minnesota. Like, he's making these kind of plays. But then you started to make a lot more progress the next year. You mentioned it. It's different at camp. Bill's not there. And we mentioned it. This is a seismic shift in the NFL, especially for you guys. And not just from the idea of covering the team, which obviously it will be different because this coach speaks. But just the idea of that whole place. I guess in some small way I could compare it. And the only reason I say small because it's college, not the NFL. It's like Boeheim gone at Syracuse is a seismic shift. I mean, he was there forever, and he had that aura about him and a lot of negativity, even with all the success. No Bill in the building has to make everything different there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you kind of sort of follow it along, there were a lot of comments made at the introductory press conference to Mayo, at Elliott Wolf's press conference at the combine, where it seemed like these little subtle shots at Bill, and they've sort of tried to walk that back, like, just this is what we were and this is what we're going to be. But it's like there was a tenseness around the building because Bill was never satisfied, and obviously for the better part of 20 years, that was hard to argue with the overall results of it, even if guys were griping and miserable at times. They were miserable enough, but at the end, when they won a Super Bowl, okay, we can live with this. And then the last 4 years where you're just not winning, and you're sort of the bad drafts caught up to them, and then you're bringing in all these free agents, and some of them weren't culture fits. So then you're having sort of the residuals of that. Like, wait, I only signed here because of the money, and this guy's a jerk. I don't care what he tells me to do. Like, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And if that gets me tapped on the shoulder and called up to the office, what's he going to do? Cut me? Like, I got $20 million guaranteed. Like, go ahead, cut me. Someone else will pick me up, and I'll have more fun playing there than playing for a crap team here. So that the end was really toxic. And I think they've gone so far the other direction that my fear is maybe too far. And that they're going to have to try to, they've already had to walk some things back. They might have to reel some of that back as well, especially if it starts out poorly. But it's a far different atmosphere. Requests that normally you wouldn't even, at this point, you wouldn't even have considered making, you make now, and you think like, I might get that. Like, that actually may happen for me. Whereas before you're like, I'm going to make the request, but I know the answer is no. I'm just going to make it anyways to say that I made it, but I'm not going to get that response.
I'm curious about the setup for Drake May, because I look at, I've been talking on this channel for a while, that at least since Diggs was gone, and even when Diggs was here, that the Bills have one of the worst wide receiver rooms right now in the league.
Yeah.
And
no, what are you talking about? They're all set.
Well, and one of the ones that I also I can find that is worse than them is probably New England. Like, where is obviously they did what I was hoping Bean would do, which would kind of was double dip and really try and reload the wide receiver room in a draft. And they took 2 guys. And again, you like Polk, I liked Polk. I'm head over heels for Baker. So like, what is the thought? Like, are they done? Because that's what people keep commenting into us is, do you need a number one? Why? Look at what Kansas City did. They didn't have this and all these things. And do you think this is what it's going to be? I guess I'm curious as to if I'm sitting there saying the Bills wide receiver room isn't good enough, what's the thought in New England where it may be worse?
So they think in part what happened last year in particular was because the quarterbacks were so bad, right? So like, look, they got rid of Parker. That's addition by subtract. They could have not replaced him with anybody. They couldn't have drafted a guy, and it would have been better off just by releasing him. He was a toxic dude. Get him gone. I think they're hoping that Kendrick Bourne's leadership, they signed him back to a really team-friendly contract. He's coming off the ACL. It happened mid-season. So, like, me personally, I know, again, people get a little crazy, like, oh, well, if he was what he was last year before he got hurt. I'm like, yeah, you probably won't see that guy again until, like, November. You know, like, he might be back in September, but you might not see the guy until November. But Pop Douglas, who's the little slot guy they got out of Liberty last year, 6th-round pick, had a problem staying healthy, 2 concussions, missed, I think, 4 games total. But, like, when he was on the field, he was pretty productive. And I think they feel like if they hit with one of the receivers that they drafted, Pop continues to grow, Bourne comes back, they signed KJ Osborne, who's a professional receiver. Now that, like, you know, he's fine. Like, he's had his moments from Minnesota, that they'll put together a room that raises the floor, at least, for that group. I don't know what the ceiling is. I mean, all the rookies would have to pop, and Pop Douglas would have to go bananas too. But, like, okay, we've raised the talent level in that room, and now we have the second-year guy in Douglas and the 2 rookies with Drake, and it's sort of an opportunity to do what Green Bay did with Jordan Love, right? You're letting it all grow together, and you hope, you know, at some point, whether it's 2, year 3, whatever, that they all come together and you get, you know, the Jordan Love part of the second half of last season with Green Bay.
I know you subscribe to the channel, and I know you listen to all of our pods and videos.
I mean, over and over again.
So you know what I say about hope, right, Giardi?
Oh no, he may have not heard this.
Yeah, no, I think I have. Now, you use a bad word, don't you?
Yes. I do.
Yes. Yeah. I don't appreciate that. I think, you know, Mike and I are old school. We can do this without swearing.
We're waiting for the FCC to clamp down on us.
It's just whenever I think that, well, they're hoping. It's like, well, you can hope in one hand and shit in another and see which one fills up first.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, it's absolutely true. It's just like the idea of Brandon saying afterwards, like, we're expecting Keon Coleman, like, he's going to have to come in and be good, and he's going to have to be good right away. Yeah. Like, okay, like, we've seen, it's obviously receivers have made a better transition in the last, 10 years than we're ever used to seeing, but it doesn't always happen. You don't always hit it out of the park.
Going back to the Bills there, because there's this narrative with a lot of fans that Josh will make the guy better.
Mm-hmm.
Does the quarterback make the player better? I mean, unless you had decades of Brady with whoever he played with, and obviously give him Randy Moss, he throws 50 touchdown passes. Do you believe the quarterback makes, say like a good example is Curtis Samuel, who's been a good player in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback play for him has not been great around him. Now he's with Josh Allen. So
I think
does the quarterback make him better?
Yeah, Mike, I think there's a bump. But I don't know that it's as high a percentage of bump as people would like it to be. And I think all you have to do is look at Kansas City this past year, right? Like, it was a dogfight for them. And after they lost that game to the Raiders, they sort of like changed what they were doing and got a little bit more physical in the run game and handed the ball off a little bit more. Like, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. No disrespect to Josh, because it's, they're 1-2, but like, Pat's winning Super Bowls, right? Did Pat make MVS any good? Was he still dropping balls?
He does listen.
Did he make Kadarius Toney? Like, no. Tony gave him the good bump 2 years ago. What was Toney this year? It's a disaster. Like, Rasheed Rice.
Say this or anything. I didn't pay Giardi. Like, he texted, but I didn't tell him, like, hey, Mike, this is what I need you to stay here to help me out.
Hey, look, Mike, you know this league, right? Everybody's like, well, the Chiefs did it this way. And I'm looking at it going, like, the Baltimore game's a good example. Like, they punted the ball every time they had the ball in the second half.
Yeah.
And their defense shut down the Ravens. Even in the Super Bowl, like the defense, it was in there, and then they made, because he will make plays. But it's not like you're saying, is he makes these guys. And I think that expectation for Josh, I think sometimes it takes the other parts of it. And it's great to start out with Spags as your defensive coach, Jones on the line, the secondary that they had, and Mahomes, who just seems to always make the play, much like Brady seemed to do in the big moment. But Kansas City's out there going, we're bringing in Hollywood Brown. We're bringing in, you may say taking flyers, but they know it will make life a little easier if they get more out of the receiver position.
Oh, you don't think, we haven't heard Patrick say it officially. You don't think Patrick went to Brett Veach after the season was like, hey, dude, it's great we won. It was awesome. Kelsey turned back the clock in the postseason, and MVS actually caught a couple balls I threw to him, but you got to give me more. You got to give me more there. And I think, Josh is probably looking at going, okay, you got me Coleman. I like Khalil. Samuel's brought in, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, Yeah.
Pat was saying, Brett, how I wasn't throwing our receivers under the bus this year, and I was really kind. I'll start dunking on these guys if it's another year of this crap.
Well, none of this matters anyhow, because it's going to become a running league, right? I just want to see him blow up.
We're gonna pound the rock now 40 times a game.
Yeah.
I heard somebody on the radio in Boston suggest that they play Drake May from week 1, which again, I'm not ruling out anything. If the guy's ready to go, you play him. I don't care, whatever. If he beats out Jacoby Brissett in the preseason, I'm playing him. But he'll just throw 14, 15 times a game, and they'll just, they'll hand it off to Ramondre 25 times. And they brought in Gibson, and he's a big guy. I'll give it to him 15 times, and they'll win that way with defense and the run game. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
That was my takeaway from this whole playoff run, was where the Chiefs had such a dominant defense and all of these things. And I still went out of the playoffs going, you need more offense because it's one play. The Bills were, for as good as the Chiefs defense was, they were still one drive away, one field goal away from extending a game. I want as many weapons for Josh, period.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit there and say, Josh, you fix all of it. It just doesn't seem to be the answer.
Well, plus let's just think about it. You mentioned Chris Jones before.
Yeah.
Chris Jones is a top 10 player in the league.
Right.
Yeah.
In the league, regardless of position. That dude, when he's he can destroy games. He's destroyed games for Kansas City against Buffalo. He has that capability, and he's sort of almost like Kelsey did, sort of turns the clock back a little bit, or he's pacing himself, whatever it is. When he gets to January and February, he becomes a different guy. He was a second-round pick. If Ed Oliver was that for Buffalo, maybe we're having a different, and LL was a fine player, but maybe we're having a different conversation about, the game a few years ago or this year. You have the guy that can sort of take over a game defensively, make a play, get it to your quarterback again, and let him do work. Chris Jones has done that a lot for Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, the Chiefs, they have closers. Mahomes is a closer. Jones is a closer. McDuffie, I think, is a closer.
Yes. Yep.
And Kelsey is a closer. He just is. Like you said, no matter what happened, he came through in the big moment. And I also believe once you've won, and again, reference to the Patriots, once you've won and the quarterback has won and the team feels like a certain sense of not just confidence that they can do it, but while there's always pressure, if you've done it before, Brady didn't win every Super Bowl, but he got a lot of them. Mahomes is it's been incredible what he's been able to do, but he lost one. Just that thought. Whereas Josh Allen goes into it with that hanging over him each year, and it gets heavier. Whether it's on him or not, it gets heavier. Mahomes, he's just piling them up right now, and I do think that helps a player in those moments where I've been there, I've done that. If it doesn't happen, it's not career defining like it is for a lot of these other guys.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. Was NFC Championship game. I want to say it was 2015. Patriots in Denver. Denver scores a couple early, even though Peyton couldn't throw. Caught him in a blitz. Caught him in a coverage mess up. Took the lead, and Patriots were having offensive line issues. The center was giving away the snap count on every play. So DeMarcus Ware on one side, I forget who was on the other. Derek Wolfe on the inside. Jackson, who got paid a ton of money by Jacksonville coming off that year, beat the hell out of Brady. I think he got hit 25 times in that game. In the fourth quarter, Brady let him back, and they had the ball going for 2 to tie the game and force overtime. And Brady got hit. They didn't, but he got him that close. That team, in that moment in particular, didn't have their left tackle. Vollmer had to go from right tackle to left tackle. So all these things that were going against them, then you said to yourself, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
It's not. And then all of a sudden, he has them within 2 yards of going into overtime in a game they had no business even being in, let alone having a chance to win.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of Tom Brady, I'm surprised you did not get your own slot on the roast. What were your thoughts of, well, big picture? What's your thoughts on the roast, the Tom Brady roast?
I mean, so look, the very definition of the roast, right, is the line is here and you got to go right through the line. Like there's nothing is supposed to be off limits. But in this day and age, political correctness, canceling people, these sorts of things, I'm like, I don't know how racy this is going to get. Oh no, Kevin Hart right out of the chute, with the Giselle comments with her new boyfriend, who was her boyfriend when they were still dating, whatever. Like that just started it, and it did not stop. It was eye-opening in many cases. And what was the worst part of it? Well, there are a couple guys that didn't, but Brady at the end wasn't. He was kind of stiff, but otherwise, like there were some unbelievable moments where he was like, he just said that? What just happened there?
Because I was like, is this going to be like with kid gloves? Like, is this how it's going to be?
Yeah.
And then when he started the Taekwondo jokes in the beginning, I was like, oh no, it's going to be a real roast. Oh, this is going to be real.
And Belichick walking out. I would say I'm sitting there listening to Will Ferrell. If people haven't seen it, it's not safe for work. Don't have the volume up and keep the kids out of the room because it's like right up there. But when Belichick walks out, I was a little surprised. Will Ferrell had taken shots at Belichick, and then he walks out. What'd you make of that? You've seen that dynamic up close and for a long time. What'd you make of that? Belichick coming out, taking shots at everybody.
So first of all, I thought Bill, like, he wasn't crass, right? Like, obviously there was a ton of stuff that, as you mentioned, not safe for work. Like, he just sort of didn't go that way. But he threw some vicious Danny Amendola, for those who don't know, Amendola, obviously a big part of, I think, 3 Super Bowl wins. Amendola can't stand Bill and has, at every opportunity since he left, has crapped on Bill. Crapped on him in the Dynasty, that series that on Apple TV, like whatever. You run into Danny, you want a quote about Bill Belichick that's negative, Danny was more than willing to offer it up to you. And Bill went, oh, Danny's up here. Let me just zip him. Oh, yeah, we signed Danny to a big money contract. He had 200 yards in his first season. As Randy Moss would call that a pretty good day. Like, he lit him up pretty good. So, like, he definitely hears all the things that have been said. To come out with the joke right away, which look, we know these things were written for them. I'm sure they had their own material, but it was cleaned up by comedians. But like the joke about like, oh, roast for Tom, not like the roast for me on the 10-part series in the documentary, right?
That's a good line. I like that. I thought that was good to start. He stumbled over it.
That was unfortunate.
That was the only thing, because I was like, I think you really could have hit that one.
Yeah. Yep. Is this his? Look, he's trying to show that other side. I saw a little bit of the draft stuff. Obviously, he could be different than he is in the post-game news conference. We're ridiculous. All right. Is he coaching next year?
So I have a hard time with this because my initial thought was, oh, he's definitely going to get a job this past cycle. And then when he doesn't, now I'm looking at going, he's going to be 73 for the start of next season. Like, he doesn't have a succession plan. Like, everybody knows McDaniels doesn't work and Patricia didn't work. Like, so if he brought all his people with him, like, okay, if Bill wants to do this for 2 years, break the record, well, who are we handing the keys over to? I'm knocking stuff over.
That's awesome.
I knocked over the football that the NFL Network gave me. They can go to hell. So like seriously, like you're thinking to yourself, like, what? I don't know now. I find it hard. Like I find it hard to believe now that someone would turn it over. Like, what's the pitch? Because if you're an owner, like 2 years, do I want just 2 years? And it didn't go very well at the end. So I'm not tiring the Bill Belichick who won the 6 Super Bowls, and the last one was in 2018. This is in 2019.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 2025. Like, I'm gonna do that then? I don't know. I kind of doubt it now.
And you say, like, I've read some of the things in Atlanta, the guys, whatever reason, but like, if I'm in that room and I'm with the owner, I'm realizing, like, no matter what he says, it would be the Bill Belichick show.
Yeah.
And if you blow that up, Bill gets the wins he needs to pass Shula, great. And you might have 2 8-win seasons. And now what do you do? Now what do you do? I mean, look, if you knew he was going to come in, take your team to the Super Bowl, obviously all these teams would want him. But I think it just is kind of fascinating that it went that way this year. In hindsight, maybe he should have said, I'm not coaching this year. Dallas. And it would have looked a little bit better. Yeah, I think Dallas is probably still out there, but
Dallas and Philly, right? Because Philly obviously sniffed around for
briefly. The thing about, honestly, I would be stunned if they hired him. Howie Roseman doesn't want to go anywhere. Lurie talks about never hiring a defense, and I know Bill could coach anything. He talks about emotional intelligence with the players. I'm like, he just is honestly, I personally think they sniffed around, but like that is blowing up everything to bring him in. But you never know. Team has a lousy year. All of a sudden, Bill looks better. So
yeah, it's the desperation, right? Like how desperate does one? And we've seen these guys, the 32. Yeah, they're not they may have made a lot of money, and I guess that by general nature probably makes them smarter than me. But when it comes to football, they're not very smart.
Yeah. It can happen.
You're the best.
I appreciate it, guys. A lot of fun breaking stuff. It was good to launch that football across the room like that.
Top 5 Buffalo Plus moments. There have been times where Mike has completely repeated something we've said because he is zoned out on something I've said. That's a top 5 moment. And Jenna not being high.
And you've done the same thing.
I have.
When they do it, when I do it, it's because I'm old. When they do it, it's I was busy or whatever it happens to be.
Mike, I've had some technical issues in recent weeks. For instance, day 2 of the draft, we get the virtual meeting with Elliott Wolf after the second pick, the 3rd round pick, Caden Wallace. And I'm like the second question, sitting on my couch. And I'm talking and he's like shaking his head. And I'm like, I'm unmuted. What's going on? I tried again. They're like, no, we'll come back to you, Mike. So I'm like trying to troubleshoot it, my son's next to me going, what are you, an idiot? And couldn't figure it out. Could not figure it out. I think the next day I was working out. I dialed my boss, didn't know what was happening. He calls me back, like, because we always text, we never call on the phone. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, you just called me. I'm like, I don't.
All the time. He was at the Sixers game and I go, what are we talking about? The salary cap? It's just Mike. I could hear a full-on conversation.
I was talking with my nephew about the salary cap. Dan's like, nice conversation. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to hear about this.
Yeah.
You're the best.
It happens.
It's been a rough stretch for me on that.
Real quick, let people know where they can find you.
Boston Sports Journal is where I am writing, currently housed. And then, of course, Mike Giardi on Twitter. And if you want to look at photos of my dog, my new dog, who's insane, that's on Instagram. Same thing.
Awesome. Thanks again, Mike. We'll catch up with you soon.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, Giardi brings it. Don't think he's going back to NFL Network anytime soon.
No, I don't think anybody is. I don't think anybody's going back to NFL Network.
Yeah. All right, what do you got? We have some comments.
Of the wide receivers, this is from Kosti Karakusis. Of the wide receivers that are currently signed, how many do you think will make the active roster? How many in the practice squad? And will the new kickoff rules impact the number of wide receivers the team carries?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
On the kickoff rule. I think teams are not sure how this is going to play out.
Agreed.
And I think they're going like, would it be a bigger guy running back the kicks? Because, maybe a bigger back, would it be, why am I drawing a blank?
Ty Johnson?
No, the Penn State defensive back they drafted in the 6th round. Drawing a blank on his name. He's a returner.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we really know. I don't think the teams really know how the kickoff.
I agree.
And I don't know if it'll be a wide receiver. It could be because you guys, it's pretty wild the way it sets up. It could be better to have a more powerful guy than a speed guy in terms of because it might be more like almost like a regular play
Yeah.
once they get closer. But I say, look, they dress
5.5.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the game. And then they'd probably have 2 on the practice squad
Yeah.
and maybe even have a receiver who's inactive, depending on who it is. And then another one. So there's probably 7 total on the 90 or on the 90, on the 70.
60. Yeah. I think
Would it-
Isabella's always a good candidate to be on the practice squad. Just the fit because he can play a couple of different positions.
Everybody loves having he didn't do anything when he came in.
Yeah, most practice squad players don't.
Yeah, but he had been in the league before. A lot of people were excited about it. I don't know. I want to kind of like find me a guy there who can come in and help a little bit more. But yes, that's probably about it.
And I think whoever is it Tyrell Shavers?
Yes.
Is another guy people are talking about. Yeah, I think if Shorter or Shavers, it could be one of those guys landing on that spot. But we all have to see. Like it's early with what we're gonna see out of training camp and things like that. And then obviously there will always be some guy that will make plays in this training camp that you will fall in love with.
And there are times it's easy when you see it in a certain way, you're like, this guy is going to be this, that, and the other, but the team sees it differently. Flashes a little bit. Usually it's a running back, it's somebody, and everybody's like, if you cut this kid, he's going to be on it. And then a lot of times they come back on the practice squad. So it depends, but it will at least be, it's a competition for the end of the 5 guys to start or to be on the roster and then the practice squad.
Efer Madness had a good comment here. Do you have any insight into what Brady's offense is going to look like? I'm guessing it's going to be way different than Dorsey or Daboll's. The personnel are interesting and versatile. For instance, Cook and Shakir are similar players at different positions. Coleman, Kincaid, Claypool, if he makes the team, are all big dudes. I've thought about that a lot.
They're just going to run the ball in every down.
No, they're not. I don't think that we have any idea what this Joe Brady offense is going to look like because I don't think last year really was his full offense. And then it's tough to compare it to a Carolina offense because that was a poorly built roster.
Oh, yeah.
And we joke around about making chicken salad out of chicken shit. This is a chance where you are really going to have weapons that Joe Brady can use. And the last time he did it was at LSU and they won a national championship. I'm not saying
pretty good weapons.
I'm not saying it's that extent, but this thought of, well, Brady ran the ball a lot at the end of the year. Last year, they had success running the ball. They're just going to keep running the ball. I don't think that's totally accurate because I think at that point, you're playing with the cards you were dealt. And now with this whole off season, I'd like to see a little bit more creativity than just smash mouth football.
Couple of things. I appreciate the comment. It's a good comment. I will tell you this. I don't think Cook and Shakir are anything alike as a player. I think
it's just body size.
Yes. Oh, and the only reason I say is I'm not being critical. I'm saying is sometimes people look at backs. Backs don't run the route tree. There's certain plays in there most of the time, unless you're, Christian McCaffrey, you are out of the backfield, make a play, get him the ball. I think Shakir is a very good route runner, and I think he's a different player. But just if you're talking about physically, I think the most interesting guy on the entire roster for this year is Curtis Samuel.
I agree.
I think there are things he can do that they've looked for. Look, he's a better football player than Isaiah McKenzie. I don't think he's a gadget guy. I think he's a guy.
Yeah.
He plays in a similar way
of Debo.
Yes. Now, Debo is a more physical player, though Samuel can make plays and he's fast, but the idea is you use him all over the place. And the NFL used to shy away from this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like more of a college thing. It was. Not anymore. Like, if a guy can do it all, like, they'll move him in the backfield. You get guys in the backfield, they can make plays. I think that is a key guy. He is a key guy to unlocking some things this offense hasn't had.
I agree. Just 2 more comments I thought were interesting. Broski plays. How would you guys rank the AFC East offenses right now?
Wow. AFC offenses right now. Okay. Well, listen,
because I don't think it's necessarily as easy as 1, 2, and 3, like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's almost there's a tier, there's a drop off, and then there's the
let me
basement.
start with this. I'm going to go on a limb here and say Patriots are 4th.
That is
correct. I just saw that the other day. It's so good. I will say this: Josh alone, Miami has better skill position players than the Bills,
but they got issues.
They do have issues.
They got issues,
and they have Tua. I'll still take Josh and what he's got as number 1. And listen,
I think Miami it's 1A and 1B.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm just saying, put Josh out there with maybe not New England's, because I do think the Bills have better skill position guys than New England, just because most of them haven't proven anything. But I'll still say because Allen is still the number 1 quarterback
by far.
Yeah, and we don't know about Rodgers.
No, but I like some of their pieces. I like that they did shore up a little bit of their offensive line. Like those made sense to me. Yeah, the Dolphins' offense in October to me is really scary.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem as scary in December or January.
Yeah, usually people have figured them out.
Yes.
And
I really like Mike McDaniel, but they got issues on their interior offensive line, which is always a concern. I'm not a huge Tua fan, but I love their scheme. I love their pre-snap motion. I love how they get guys in space. I love that they can, while they have burners in the backfield, it is a smash mouth type of running game. Like they have a physicality of their running game, but their team isn't physical enough, I feel like, to win that time. I like the Odell signing. I think to have Odell be your number 3 is a damn good player in that spot.
Hey, they're a lot to handle. I mean, they got Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Like, if you think about it.
But I'd still take Josh. I'm with you.
I'll just say this one brief thing. Imagine Allen with those 3 guys.
5,500 yards.
Yeah. He's not. And listen, I think Garrett Wilson is one of the best players in the NFL. I think he has put up numbers with horrible quarterback play.
Yeah. And Breece Hall's really good too.
Yeah. So we'll see how the Jets are. It's tight there. You don't know because Rodgers hasn't played.
But I think there's a drop.
Yes, because we haven't seen it. But listen, it's still, if he's still Rodgers, even after all this, they're going to be pretty good. They're going to be pretty good offensively. So it's definitely tightened up until we see what the Bills have.
One last comment, then we'll wrap up. Again, please like, comment, subscribe. I can see who comments if they're a subscriber or not. So we're more likely to respond and interact with. Yes.
Very judgy.
So please take a second.
Subscribe.
Okay. Thank you. Max Herzog says, curious about realistic expectations. And I love this comment because he says, the internet says we fall off this year. They said that the past 3 years. And as we know, Bills fans know Josh Allen is good enough to win a Super Bowl. So I want to see some realistic expectations, what realistic expectations are, and wonder what you guys think what we should do if we lose to the Chiefs in the divisional round again. Well, we'll get to that later in the year. And again, I do think that it's funny to have this comment of what are our, on May 6th, what are realistic expectations again for this team? Pending changing. Obviously, we can change these, but as of right now.
Look, I still think they're right there to win the division. That's the first thing. And I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be one of those years. I think 11 wins the division. I just feel like it's not quite the NFC North where I think actually it kind of is. You got 3 teams really good. And then the 4th team, like in that case, you would say, that Minnesota, because of the changes they made, you never know how they play. But I would say the division's going to be tight. I don't expect the Bills to go win 15 games. I don't expect them to win 7 games. I think they're going to be right there again because they have Allen. I think they have a defense that could be different, but really good because, again, the changes in the secondary a little bit is a strength of this team. If Milano is healthy, I like the defense a lot.
Yeah.
So I still have them. I say realistically, get in. A division title would be great like they did last year. That's kind of where I have them. And then at that point, it's wide open.
Yeah, I think Jenna's talked about that. I think they're going to slide under the radar, obviously, this year. I think everybody's going to love Houston. I think Houston's a better football team on paper right now than the Bills are. but I still expect them to win the division, partly because they've done it.
Yeah.
And that was what the big thing was before. It was like, oh, cool, you made the playoffs in 2019, but you got to win the division to get home games and things like that. And you weren't really sure. Now that they've done it, I feel like that's like what Miami's dealing with. Well, yeah, we're really good. We've made the playoffs, but then you go on the road and you play in sub-zero temperatures in Kansas City. Right. So I still see them to win the division because they've done it and they've earned that respect, cachet of it. But after that, they have to figure some things out because I'd put them maybe right with the Bengals as maybe the 4th or 5th best team. What Baltimore is going to be?
Chiefs, Baltimore. I'm sorry, Cincinnati getting Burrow back is, like you said, is there.
Houston,
that division itself. The North, I mean, Cleveland's a talented team.
I forgot about Cleveland.
Yeah, and you have Baltimore. I mean, and Pittsburgh, everybody's loving their draft. I don't love Russell Wilson, but maybe he gives them something. So, and then Houston. So there's a lot of talent in but listen, get yourself there and then we'll see where we are. So yes, I still think they're that contender. But there's a lot of questions to be answered.
Yeah. Thanks again for watching. Yeah. We'll have Mike and I'll be up there on Friday. We will have a video out as soon as we can from Friday. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sure we'll have amazing sound bites and clips from Keon Coleman.
Yes.
I have no question about that.
Yeah. He's a little shy, but maybe we'll get him on camera. Next what we'll do.
Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for Mike Giardi.
Yes, our special guest for Dan Fates and Jenna on vacation. I'm Mike Catalana. Thanks for watching Buffalo Plus. We'll see you next time.
Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.